ways to approach leads and different groups, and talking about the personalized message, right? Everybody wants to find this like quick and easy spam 1,000, of the same message to an email list, and voila, you get 10 leads and you make your calls and you close some deals. But, in an era where everybody's always being spammed by generic crap, I don't think that works. And I guess I'm bringing that up, Gav, because my question to you is along the lines of, is that type of marketing dead? Right? This sort of like, spamming big lists and, just playing like the numbers game? Do you think that's just kind of starting to go the way of the dinosaur at this point?
Well, so there's a kind of a debate or a difference between what's called push marketing and pull marketing.
Okay.
Push marketing is when you try and shove your message under someone's nose, right? And
Right.
and that's used to be almost what was available. You think back to newspaper advertising, and companies would write a little ad in a column in a newspaper will take up half a page, a quarter page, a full page, a double spread. This was advertising until 50 years ago. And the person who would have bought their Sunday Times, they're sitting there in the morning for breakfast, having their orange juice and their boiled egg, and they flip the page and they're absorbing the adverts. They haven't requested that advert. You got to grab them by the eyeballs with the headline. It's got to stand out to them. It's funny the progression of headlines for such products like weight loss. So the first advert would say like lose 10 pounds or lose 20 pounds, right? And then they'd sell a lot of products, and that would get old, and then it would have to be lose 20 pounds in 30 days. And okay, that's better, that's new. Then it would have to be lose 20 pounds in 30 days, and then they'd have to add the mechanism, like without changing your diet or something
Mm,
additional. So there's what's the name? Gene Schwartz wrote a book, amazing, one of my favorite books. He was a legend of copywriting, um, and he said that markets go through 5 phases. Basically, you add the mechanism, and then you add the time frame, etc. Um, but this is still push marketing, and then you got like spammy ads that are going out there. The more we become modernized, the more people can curate their own experience, the more they can filter the stuff that's coming to them based on the tags, based on we were talking about social media having groups like on Twitter. You get put into a group, and that's who sees your content. If I'm talking about a topic, if I'm in that topic, then and I'm having conversations, then if I see someone part of that conversation, then they're not pushing an advert at me. I'm pulling that experience into me as a consumer. I'm saying, yes, this is what I want to think about and talk about right now. And then, oh, look, there's a link that goes to a resource article, and I've asked for that resource article. And as I'm reading through that article, then it references some specific products or services or solutions. So I'm taking myself down the rabbit hole. So the more sophisticated we become with data management, filtering and matching experience, then it's all about the consumer pulling the types of stuff into their experience rather than the advertiser pushing it at them.
okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. Because this is an ongoing challenge for everybody. And I think, some of the hope with AI, right, is automating this stuff. But if people are hoping that their solution's simply going to be, you know, using one of these AI apps to auto produce, auto generate a bunch of generic content and just spam it out at everybody, I think they're going to be disappointed, that's not going to work. The AI isn't going to just allow you to basically mega spam. like, that's not you're still going to need to connect with people. You're still going to need to, have some kind of personalized approach here, so maybe the better use of the AI, like we've been talking about, is things like chatbots, right? Because now the chatbot is basically doing the work of a customer service slash sales rep for you. And because they're doing it now in a way that's quite novel and very human, right? It doesn't sound like it's reading off a script of stock answers and just, you're talking to the thing and it keeps spamming you the same shitty answer that you didn't like the first time, right? These things are going to be talking to you. They're almost never going to give you the same answer twice. I mean, unless you program it that way. So it's interesting. We're experimenting with this and we'll see, but we know that people are already having a lot of success with this. So maybe, I mean, that's a little different. I guess that's already somebody who's a bit of a lead that's come to your website or whatever. But yeah, I mean, on that, what are you seeing so far? Like where are you seeing AI, or at least believe, even if you're not seeing it directly, where is AI able to make the difference right now? What
Well,
AI tools, and where do you see them being applied to make a real difference for people?
so just on the push marketing versus pull for AI chatbots. If you think about chatbots, someone goes to a website and they're looking for information, they start to interact with your chatbot, then they're attempting to pull
Right,
relevant experience and content. And then if
right.
you do a good job of the conversation in the chatbot, if it's sophisticated, you're not trying to put it, it becomes awkward when the chatbot doesn't have a good response and it suggests some alternative adjacent random thing that like the person's thinking, that's not what I'm asking, right? So the better it is, then the closer to pull marketing, probably the height of pull marketing is a curated conversational chatbot experience because it
Okay.
goes exactly to what the person is looking for. What I'm looking at the moment in terms of AI opportunity is a little bit of a segue. It's in essence, it's governance. Um, and
Hmm.
I've been listening to this morning a few other podcasts. A guy called Nicholas Anzinger, who founded a VC called Infinita VC.
Okay.
He's mixed with Vita DAO, which is a decentralized organization looking at longevity and funding
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, I've heard of those guys.
they're funding small projects that wouldn't typically get funded from a VC.
Huh.
They're at a much earlier stage, or they're trying to do some kind of different kind of benevolent research towards longevity.
Okay.
Um, and he's also involved in this guy Nicholas Anzinger. He's involved with Prospera in Roatan, which is the group got a special economic zone agreed with the Honduran government in
Hmm.
in this island of Roatan, which is off the coast of Honduras, and they've just got 100 million investment into be able to build out this area of Roatan that they have the rights on. They just bought a resort.
Nice.
They're building a couple of 3-story, I think, residential buildings with apartments. Um, and it's this conversation of governance. And what I'm noticing is, even in Twitter, in these groups, there's a lot more conversation about how do we do better governance.
Mm,
It's less about the political issues because they're so divided, they're so extreme that
mhm.
there's no real conversation about political issues
No.
anymore. It's just there's two parties and they're both like enemies. That's like as far as the political conversation goes. So what's left is now that we're getting numbers that 50 million or 50% of US voters are recognize themselves as independent,
Yeah, it's about that.
right? Um, there's a different kind of conversation. There's a conversation that says, how should we or do we govern? And the Web3 community, the blockchain community, has inspired a lot of that uh, conversation over the past 10 years. But I'm seeing it more and more in that's somewhat not, I don't know if to call it mainstream, but more conversation that I see on social media. And I think AI plays the biggest opportunity in these areas. So, with things like reputation of a person, how do we allow a person to govern particular areas? Pretty funny if you look at, I think it's the head of the health minister of the European Commission. She does not look healthy.
Right.
It's outrageous. And there's a bunch of these people. You've got to have a certain level of meritocracy to be able to have certain positions of authority and power and control. And so we're looking at the reputation of people of being able to be in positions of governance. AI can help to curate the criteria on which people are judged as being reputable for different subjects. So the AI can collect your personal history, your work experience, your associations, your everything you said on social media. Obviously, a scary thought
Hmm.
as well. And we've got to be as honest as possible that we're all human and we might crack sexist jokes or I don't know, whatever it is in the past, and it doesn't add up to what the human is today. A lot of people demonized for stuff they've said 10 years ago when they were like 15 years old and now they're in their
Right.
20s, mid 20s or mid 30s or whatever. But that's part of it. It's how do we use machine learning and to curate a genuine representation of what someone is all about today and not get them trapped in a narrow slice judgment of what they are based on something they were involved with or some false accusations that's unfortunately easy to build up into something because of media and because of just attack groups on social media. So again, I think AI is going to help us develop reputation, and that's going to lead us to better forms of governance, big governance and small governance, um, and and to be more democratic, all the way up to national politics, but democratic even in the sense of communities or organizations. And this is a big part of what you and I spend time thinking about with Haifa, who we work with um, for as a technology platform that enables this kind of thing of having groups get together, develop agreements with each other
Mhm.
by what we call at Haifa sense making. So we're trying to make sense of a situation sufficient so that we can make an agreement and make a proposal of a policy or a priority and then get that done. I think AI is going to become used and relevant. It's not just marketing, which is a lot of what we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks, but it's management, it's governance, it's accuracy of information, it's the reputation that each of us have and bring to the table to say, look, I'm good at these areas and not very good at these other areas. This is what I've committed to. I've got experience in. I got passion in, um,
Mhm.
um, and and then that will create factions, groups of people that associate together because they share some semblance of relevance to each other. And I think this is going to start to have a bigger influence and impact.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't thought of it that way. As you were something that was coming to mind when you were talking about the identity element and the reputation element, was this idea of sentiment analysis. And I kept thinking like a great way to really get an assessment of somebody is, sure, maybe 10 years ago they made an off color comment somewhere, right? But what does the sentiment analysis say when it looks at all of their writing over the last 10 years? Do they write with a racist undertone or a misogynistic undertone or a whatever, narcissistic, whatever? Is it kind of like interwoven in who they are? Or did they just have a bad day and do something really dumb, and trying to impress the wrong crowd, right? Or whatever. They retold the joke their dad told them that is not funny anymore, but, whatever. That's all they could come up with. I mean, we're seeing this with like Russell Brand,
Mhm.
all of a sudden all that blew up. And it's like, Russell Brand sitting here going, I copped to that. I told you guys I was a dog. I never acted like I was proud of the way I behaved back then. Now he's adamant that, he didn't assault anybody or anything like that. And what I think is insidious, I haven't looked super deep in this because it's not the type of story I tend to follow, but it just kind of kept ending up in my face today when I was checking out some stuff on Twitter. But the allegations actually, they're really slimy in this sense with the, people that are coming after him, and that they're not saying he assaulted anybody or raped anybody or anything like that. They're saying stuff like, well, he told the guy that, he offered up his assistant to give the guy a massage, sort of like pimping out his how do you know what that was? Like, that's a reach, right? Okay, you have a conversation where Russell Brand says, "Here's this Hollywood star." Who knows who he's talking to? Maybe he's talking to Brad Pitt on the other line, and he says, "Well, I could probably get my assistant to give you a massage," right? I mean, this just sounds like really strained, right? Like, did you talk to the assistant? Did the assistant complain? Like, whatever happened to, like, you actually have to, like, corroborate a story or, like, as a journalist, you actually have to investigate and, like, not just take things at face value. You go and talk to this assistant, If you have this information, I'm sure you know who his assistant was at the time, and can find this person and ask them, we don't do that because it's just so much easier in this climate to just kind of play into whatever the recent uproar is or whatever people are most, upset about, and just kind of be sloppy like that and lazy. But it would be really interesting in this situation to do something like a machine learning, AI analysis of and of course, for someone like Russell Brand, there'd be tons of this, but all of his public appearances and all of his writing and his podcasts and everything, and say, who is this guy? Because you're going to get an answer, and people might go, you can't, you can't get that. You're not going to get that with a machine. Like, bullshit. I'm telling you right now, Amazon knows a hell of a lot more about you than you probably know about yourself. Since most people aren't very self-aware as it is and spend very little time kind of in contemplation and really taking a hard look at themselves, trust me, AI probably already knows more about you than you know about yourself, or certainly it knows things about you that you're blind to. It knows tendencies you have. It knows secure insecurities and fears you have. You know, it is we give away a lot more than we think is what I'm getting at. In our writing, in the way we speak, in our tone, in the places we go and when we go to them, and what we do when we get there, and what we buy and what we don't buy and what we look at, and right, that's how they figure out, like, they can tell if a person's in a relationship within like seconds, normally, just by a few cues. The time they're online, like on Amazon, for example, the time they're online shopping, the day, and what they're looking at. That's kind of all they need. They can almost immediately assess with some ridiculous accuracy, like 80% or something, single, married, divorced, you know. I think they can even tell, like, like gay, and all kinds of stuff. It's crazy. And we're not as complex as we think in lots of ways, right? We're not as unpredictable and as unique, right? We're quite similar, and we do lots of the same things, and we have lots of patterns in our lives. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot there. I mean, I'm just kind of going down that road on what it can show us, but to tie it back into your point about governance, this can give us the type of insights that can really let us know who's fit to be a leader, right? Because I could be a really slick talker and talk you into voting for me, but that doesn't mean I'm any good. We've seen that a million times. But to have somebody really assessed on, like, hey, is this person fair? Yes, their fairness rating is 89. Cool. Is this person honest? Yes, their honesty rating is a 93. Okay, is this person good at leading people? No, they're a 64, right? Or they're okay, they're fair, whatever. But it just comes back to data, 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 data. It's not just we can't. I don't want to say we can't because I'm not sure, but I'll give the point that we can't just say, okay, we're just going to take data and whenever the data says exactly what we're going to do. Life's a little more nuanced than that. However, it's an important part of it and we're not leveraging enough. It's the information age and it's like we're going back to the stone age. We don't care about the truth anymore. It's nuts.
Couple of things there. You made me think of Tesco. I used to work with this data analyst company that segmented
Mm.
campaigns, whatnot, and the chairman got me to read the book. The book title, and it was about how Tesco developed their reward and loyalty point system, and the coupons that they would send to um, people through direct mail
What was the
would
book
be
title, Gav? I think it stumbled there.
literally, it was literally called Tesco.
Oh, okay.
Um, and it was all about their data analysis for their loyalty point program and
Okay.
how the coupons that they send through the people nation of coupons would be absolutely specced on the buyer profile to have a balance of things that they typically buy, that they have bought a couple of times in the past, and on balance, what they might buy if because of the propensity they have of their buying history compared to what other people are buying. So they were doing a massive amount of data collation to give you exactly the coupon codes that would trigger you more likely to go back and use the coupon codes and influence your purchase choices based on what other people were doing or what they think should be in your basket.
Hmm.
I'm not even explaining that well, and this is years ago that I read the book, but it was really, really sophisticated and clever at the time. Pretty impressive from that kind of data perspective. I'm sure today things are even way more advanced than what it was 10 years ago. Um, the other thing that came up is, yeah, you're talking about the criteria that people will have. I don't think it's a bad thing that people's skill set can be analyzed. And yeah, I don't think it's that that people can be analyzed in terms of their criteria of their skills and their abilities and their psychology and this kind of stuff. As long as we use that data openly and fairly and freely, then it's a good thing. You can have a chief technology officer who's really good at tech, but he might not be good at people. Well,
Mhm.
that's okay because you can support him or you can provide him with opportunity to not have to re- rely on the crutch. Um, have additional training or just other people that are catering to the human side of it if he's on the tech side instead of trying to find 100 people with 100-point level on 10 different factors. It's
Right.
fine that we can see that we got strengths and we got weaknesses, and then you can build a better team when you can openly transparently share and understand that kind of insight. So I think a lot of good can come from that level of intelligence about people as long as it's used fairly.
Sure. Sure. All right. Well, listen, let's take it home. What I'm taking away from all of this and what I really enjoy about our conversations is, we're obviously putting a lot of effort into trying to make sense of all of this, this technology and the various applications and how does it apply to business and how does it apply to life and all of this stuff and it's it's such an interesting time. I'm really confident that all of these technologies like holds the key to some really magical opportunities like that solve some serious issues. But I think going back to the conversation about governance is like, that's the part I think we need to get right. I'm not so worried about some super intelligent AI deciding that human beings are cockroaches and killing us off. I'm really not. I think our problem isn't going, as it usually is, it's not going to be the tech, right? Guns don't shoot people. They sit and they wait until someone picks them up, and they have to be, shot by someone, right? Now, obviously AI is more of an automated thing and all that, but I think it's going to be somewhat similar. It's going to wreak havoc because human beings use it in that way, apply it for nefarious purposes. And of course people are going to try, but if there's ever been a time for us to upgrade our general governance structures, like you're talking about, like the way in which we approach government, the agreements we have about how we're going to govern, how people are going to participate in government, like now is the time. This is when I think we need it, because I keep becoming more and more convinced that decentralization is the answer, is or not, it's not the answer. It's an important part of the answer. That this has to be spread across wide groups of people. But I say that with the caveat that at the same time, what we've also found in the Web3 world is decentralization can't mean everybody weighs in on everything. That's a shit show. It's inefficient. And frankly, we're not qualified. And the
Exactly.
problem to this point with qualifying voters has always been that people will use it for, with racist undertones and sexist undertones. But if we let AI do it, and of course, we've researched and blah, blah, blah. The AI is as unbiased as possible. But, if this can be done, let's put it this way, in an unbiased way through technology, we can really identify, hey, these 1,235 people are the best people in this group to vote on this issue. They're going to give you a balanced assessment. They're balanced politically. They're balanced across sex, race, so on and so forth, whatever it is, whatever you want to attribute for. And just imagine how much better those outcomes can be. Imagine the AI identifying who can even be a candidate in the first place. That'd be so awesome. Like the ultimate randomization. Like if you don't pass the basic traits that we've all agreed in society are important to be a government, to be in government, you just don't get to run. I don't care how slick you are and how much money you have. Do better.
Yeah, I think I've just while you're explaining that, I just had a visualization, maybe just invented a new form of of voting for governance. You were explaining very well just early on this call, like a spectrum of criteria that we'd use to review someone's reputation, different thing. Um, I was thinking maybe on a spectrum from like left to right, we can put what would be the conservative approach versus the liberal approach. And individuals could use a slider and like it's got all of the different possibilities in between the two extremes. Like let's just say anti-abortion and pro-abortion or whatever they call it, pro-life. What are the nuance arguments or the reasons in between those two extremes? And then each individual can put the slider to where they think they are on that particular issue, and then the system obviously collates the averages, and having that transparency of what people really think. Then, do you really need a individual representative that is supposed to somehow represent your view of millions of people? Where you've got more of a we call that a direct democracy, where you're able to record in a system exactly where you are individually, and then see the data collection of where that compares with everyone else individually in the system. I'm going to think more about that because we are looking at technology ways for governance in communities and organizations, and maybe that's a little inspiration to play around with.
Was gonna say, we know a couple people are listening. We got some of our first comments, so thank you for that. Much appreciated. Gives us a little bit of a boost. Tells us that at least someone's interested in hearing it. Because Gavin and I could just hang out and talk like we have for years and not record it and save you all the pain if you're not into it. But obviously, some people are, so that's great. Keep it up, and please, if you have any feedback, let it rip. We're pretty open people and are always trying to learn and always want to hear new viewpoints. So let us know what you think. I'd love to hear from you.